Life is a workout, and Smoothie King is here to help you power through. Whether you're grinding out bicep curls, or muscling the couch across the living room, crushing morning miles, or sprinting through back-to-back meetings, Smoothie King has fuel to help you maximize your workouts, own your recovery, and elevate your game. Give your body the energy, protein, and power it needs with a lineup of delicious smoothies made to help you conquer your goals. Only at Smoothie King.
You are about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Daliah, 1-877 DOCDALI. So, you know, it's interesting. I watch a lot of television. I shouldn't. I've been actually watching more. I think it's because I want to now catch up. I didn't, like, I bring up The Shield. I should have watched The Shield back in 2002. Everybody was talking about it, but I didn't. I didn't have time. My kids were young. I think I was pregnant at the time. I watched American Idol and things like that. But, once I jumped on the Game of Thrones bandwagon and then the White Lotus, and I just want to be kind of accurate, not as much accurate. I want to be up to speed. I want to be able to kind of understand and see what you all see. And one thing that I guess I shied away from as it pertained to watching television shows are the medical shows. When you are a physician and when you have to read as much as we read and when you have to see patients and when you work as much as we work, we really don't want to watch medical TV shows. ER, I remember watching in the 90s because George Clooney was hot, but it was difficult to watch because it was exhausting. And it was also difficult because sometimes it wasn't very accurate and it wasn't very realistic. And for me, I need realism. I remember in medical school going with a bunch of people to see the Outbreak movie with Dustin Hoffman. And when they were showing the Ebola virus and how it was affecting the kidney cells, and when they put up the kidney cells, they weren't kidney cells. I'm like, that's not what renal cells look like. And I remember having a fit about that. And the person I was actually saying, it's okay, it's just a movie. I'm like, no, if they're going to make a movie about something medical, spend the extra $50 at the time to ask a doctor, is that what a renal cell looks like under a microscope? You really can't do that extra research. I get really frustrated by that. Hollywood spends so much money on these movies, yet they won't ask a physician or a scientist to look at, what's going on. Very interesting. They say with Ant-Man and the Wasp, they did actually consult quantum physicists to look at, what was going on and to see how accurate that was. In fact, they say Deep Impact was a lot more scientifically correct based on them asking, astronauts and Blade Runner. They even, looked at certain aspects of Blade Runner to try and make sure it could be as accurate as possible. The new Blade Runner. I don't know. To me, I don't necessarily need everything to be scientifically correct, but I keep getting asked which medical show is my favorite. Which medical show do I feel is the most realistic? Well, my answer to that, my favorite medical show is Scrubs. It really is. And in terms of realism, Scrubs. I watch Scrubs, and it's nearly identical to my training. You had senses of humor. You had a jerk senior resident, multiple jerk senior residents. You had an attending who would scare the crap out of you, especially during rounds. You would have the workplace romances. You had and I don't want to scare anybody. It obviously wasn't exactly like Scrubs, but I remember watching Scrubs early on, and I said they had to have had medical doctors and nurses and individuals on the writing team or somehow involved, because there are just too many things that just really hit home. And it turns out they did. I believe the writers were either medical students at one time or roommates of a medical student. I don't really remember the whole backstory. But so Scrubs to me was my favorite and still is. I understand there's The Pit and there's all these other medical shows, which are very, very cool. And but I don't, they're exhausting. And also with some of them, it's like when you watch these shows, they try to put everything in 1 hour. And mind you, the hours are busy. The Pit is probably one of the most realistic shows where within an hour's time you see what happens. And mind you, I've worked ER and urgent care, and but it goes by fast. When you're working that hard, you don't even realize that you've already been there 12 hours. And so, again, the realism of it, you're watching an hour-long show, and it feels like an hour, but when you work it, it doesn't. But I think the reason why I like Scrubs is because they make fun of what was really true. And when people think that was over, exaggerated, I think the comedy and the smiles, I don't remember us smiling that much, but I do remember us having a good time. I remember the flirting. I remember the being able to cheer each other up and make fun of, right, the mean doctors that were rude to you, and then the nurses keeping us in line. Some of them were tough, but we were grateful for them because they saved their butts. And that's another thing. Any TV show that does not show the nurses being the backbone of that ER or the backbone of that hospital, and the nurses and other non-doctor staff showing how that place is running, is wrong. And I really commend Scrubs for doing that, showing how us doctors relied on the nurses. I told you, my first day of coronary care unit. So CCU is like the ICU except for heart attacks. And in residency, we were all supposed to have our training, our ACLS and our ATLS, and somehow there was a delay. So I was starting my CCU month without my other training prior. And so what I did is, and I was on call day one. So I immediately walked up to the nurse's desk and I said, "Hey, ladies, I am going to be so dependent on you guys. I'm grateful you guys are here. I just want to let you know my lack of experience. Can I go to the cafeteria and get you guys some breakfast?" And I got to tell you, that night, every life was saved. We worked together. We worked together well. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away.
This is an urgent announcement for anyone that's $10,000 or more in debt. Before you make another minimum payment, you need to know there are special programs that can completely free you of your debt. Total Financial Freedom can help you become debt-free in months instead of years. Resolve your credit card debt, signature loans, department store cards, internet loans, and timeshares. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020 for a free consultation. For 16 years, Total Financial Freedom has helped thousands get out of debt. You can feel confident when calling because Total Financial Freedom is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. Battling for years and years, stuck in the endless cycle of minimum payments could take decades. You have the right to get your debt resolved and substantially reduce your monthly payments. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020. That's 800-878-6020. 800-878-6020.
Let's face it, guys, we're living in times where the truth is becoming more suppressed and censorship is increasing at an alarming rate, especially on social media platforms. It's Clyde, and I want to tell you about a safe and secure digital playground we put together just for you. It's aftermath.media. You get access to thousands of Ground Zero archives and podcasts, along with our private social media groups with your basic membership starting at only $7 a month. Each subscription includes tech support, access to the RSS feeds along with our own chat room and Telegram channel. In addition, the premium membership includes research study groups, webinars, a document and movie library, a live video stream of Ground Zero, a monthly Zoom chat with me, and other bonus content. Be sure to check out our yearly specials as well. Sign up today while you're thinking about it. Sign up at aftermath.media. Again, that's aftermath.media.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So this weekend, I got a message from one of our listeners about the dating scene. And he was very open and honest, and he says that he has set up multiple dates where they will meet, in a nice public area, and they no-show. And these are no-shows, and that the dating scene is so difficult these days. And he's middle-aged, and I've been very fortunate to not have to date since before Corey. Thank God he's still married to me. I am petrified if he ever leaves me and had to get back out there and date. I mean, you all know. You really think somebody is going to want to spend the rest of their life with me? I don't know how Corey does it. I think he's just getting too tired, right, to consider leaving. That's what I think it is. I think he thinks, you know what, it's just easier to stay. But I'm scared. I am so scared if he ever leaves me to be out there and dating again. And so what might be happening with these no-shows is it's kind of is sadly something that's happened to us, especially on blind dates, where you're sitting there, the date comes, asks the maitre d' or the hostess, I am looking for so-and-so. They see them across the room. They say, no, I'm out of here. Not what I want. And they see you and then leave. Sadly, it's been something that has happened in the past and continues to happen. But something more new that might be going on are people actually not getting out of their house, not leaving to go to the Starbucks or to the restaurant or the coffee shop, where we have such a lack of commitment. In fact, one of the biggest pandemics we have are individuals, even not just younger, even I'm seeing this with Gen X and baby boomers, where they can't make a date. They put something in their calendar and they say, this is just penciled in. I don't want to commit. Whether it's a charity event, whether it's a wedding, a baby shower, people are having a tough time committing. And so you would think going on a date Friday night or meeting somebody at a coffee shop on a Saturday afternoon is something so benign, so non-committing, it doesn't mean you're getting married. It doesn't mean you're buying a house. But the idea of I have to get up, get dressed, and go. And so for those of you who have been stood up with dates, it might not be they walked in, looked at you, and walked out. It could be that they just can't commit to leaving the house and getting dressed. And you know what's really interesting? I'm noticing a little bit about that with me, not from a dating perspective, but I noticed that, I'm such a workaholic, and I always have so many things that I'm doing and planned. And, for example, I'm really overdue in doing my nails, okay? And I should have done it this weekend, but I did not feel like getting out, moving, and going. To me, that was just too many steps. I needed to work. I had other things to do. And so here I am putting off something that I should have really done last week because I didn't feel like making the appointment. And this concept of not making an appointment and then having to keep it, it's really pervasive across so many aspects of life. I'm seeing this with medicine. Now, I had a patient who had a gynecological issue called telemedicine for, and I go, have you seen your gynecologist for this? She goes, no, I keep canceling my appointment. I go, you mean they keep canceling your appointment? No, I do. Why? Why do you keep canceling? What's wrong? I just can't get myself to go. Is it that we all now have agoraphobia where we can't be out in social situations? Now, mind you, I cannot stand going to the doctor. You shower, shave your legs, right? Brush your teeth, chew some gum, make your hair look decent because you don't want somebody going, oh my gosh, you really look sickly. And I have to put makeup on because otherwise people think I need a transfusion. My skin is so pale that I don't want the doctor starting to order blood transfusions. So I put some makeup on, right? Try to give myself a little bit of color. Then you're waiting in the waiting room for an hour or 2 hours. Then you get back into the doctor's office. You're waiting again. Yeah, you're undressed, you're naked, and then it's not fun. But we used to do it because that's how we would do things because we had to do things. You went to the dentist, you went to the doctor, you went to school, you went to work. And we've started to really implement choices. I don't have to. If I want to see a movie, I don't have to get off my ass and go to the movie theater. I could just see it online. If I want to eat, I don't have to go and hunt and gather or go to the grocery store and cook it. I could just have somebody bring it to me or have somebody else do it. And a big thing we're going to be talking about later is spouse laziness, where many spouses are they're really getting into ruts of, or partner laziness, where they're getting into ruts of, you know, I'll just have that person do it. I'll have that person do it. So the dog decided to go poo-poo, right? And I didn't know this till my husband goes, did you poo-poo in the house? All right. So 30 minutes later, 45 minutes later, I go to that area of the house for another reason, and the poo-poo's still sitting there. My husband will not pick up the dog poo. I have to do it. He just won't do it. It'll sit there and turn hard. Like Eddie Murphy once said, right? People put, it's like furniture. So for those of you dating, this is what I recommend. And again, I'm not out there. My dating days were back in the 90s, right? So for me, it was, pop open a Zima, spray some body spray on, throw some glitter on my eyelids and some body glitter, do a pop-up bra, a push-up bra, push-up bra. We didn't have Spanx back then, but I didn't need to. I just sucked in my stomach and I was good. So I don't want to give you 1990s advice, but for those of you that are, out there dating and you're maybe try and vet the person a little bit more before you choose to meet them, because I'm starting to notice many individuals, they're being stood up so many times that they're saying to heck with it. And there are people out there. I mean, I remember telling myself, I am done. I'm not going to look for a husband anymore. I am done with dating. My heart's been broken too many times. And then it just ended up working with my husband and I. Sometimes when you stop looking is where you find it. But we aren't out and about and working around other people, and it's not easy. And in fact, if you're at a park, right, and you see somebody with their dogs or kids or whatever, and you say hi, people think you're a predator. It's different these days. You can't just meet somebody and just out on the street and have that love at first sight. And if you end up bumping into each other a few times, they think you stalk them. So if you are meeting people online, you could talk to them. Maybe before you meet, just have conversations. When you send pictures or when you share pictures of yourself, have them as accurate as they can be. I understand for me that's really hard to do because I want the really good angles and I want to look skinnier than I am, right? Because I'm not skinny. But if somebody is being catfished, they're not going to go on with the day. And by the way, if that's what they're looking for, you don't want them anyway. But if somebody's looking for companionship, they're looking for a friend, they're looking for somebody to hang out with, they don't want to be alone. They're going to put some time, they're going to put some effort into it and make them feel good. Now, throw some jokes their way, have some conversations. It's hard because I know if you say, talk to me about what's going on in your life, talk to me about you. Again, everybody's on guard. It's scary. It's scary to meet somebody online or to go through Tinder and all these other dating apps. I get that. But maybe some of us are meeting people too quickly. Another issue I'm hearing is a lot of these dates, many of the females are saying, I want marriage, I'm looking for this, I'm looking for this. And you might be like, oh, hell no. And then it falls apart. Maybe, ease in. Just, start a friendship. And maybe if we start going at it more of a friendship, it'll take 1877 Doc Dolly. Don't go away.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
diesel fuel cetane levels.
in many states, the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts. Due to a cleaner burn, there are less hydrocarbons and particulate matter in your exhaust. This reduces the blockage of your diesel particulate filter. Using Diesel Extreme generates 83% less DPF regeneration. The 6-in-1 Diesel Extreme formula also includes the most concentrated detergent on the market, lubricity enhancer, water demulsifier, rust and corrosion inhibitors, and a fuel stabilizer.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com.
Hot Shot Secret. Powered by science.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1877 Doc Dolly, 1877 DOCDALI. So one of President Trump's promises is to stop the Russia-Ukraine war. Very highly anticipated, and I think it's within his realm. I think Trump does have the ability to broker a peace agreement. I know he would love to have the Nobel Peace Prize. If he does broker this, he deserves it. If he also gets all the hostages out of Gaza and brings peace to the Middle East, that also is definitely deserving of a Nobel Peace Prize. So I hope he does it. Obviously, it's not going to be easy, yet we are getting one step closer. There is a summit with Putin planned this Friday in Alaska where Putin and Trump will meet. They are expected to discuss the war in Ukraine as well as other U.S.-Russia issues. I know Putin has reached out to Trump wanting to work with him on things. And, Trump's like, got to end the war first. Now, we got to stop. I know you want to help with you. And the summit is scheduled for Friday. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky had been concerned that he wouldn't be there and he wasn't invited. He doesn't want to give up land. And from what I understand, the White House has not ruled out Zelensky not being there. So he might be there. And the White House had said they want to make sure that Ukraine does get some land back. According to BBC, Trump said he will try to get back territory for Ukraine with talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin. He says Russia's occupied a big portion of Ukraine. They occupy prime territory. We're going to try to get some of that territory back for Ukraine. So the talks in Alaska would be a feel-out meeting aimed at urging Putin to end the war. There will be some swapping changes in land. Now, we know that Vladimir Zelensky has been not very happy about this, a lot of protests, and understandable. He doesn't want, to be left out of this. This is his country. Putin invaded his country. Now I'm sorry. As far as I'm concerned, Putin's a bad guy. And this is why there's been so much support for us helping Ukraine. But the problem we have is we're, year 3? And the money could be better spent. And if Trump could get this war to stop, then we don't have to keep funding the war in Ukraine for them to protect themselves. Where things are a little tricky is Zelensky doesn't really have a lot of, shall we say, power in this, because if Trump really wants there to be a deal and Zelensky says, no, sorry, I don't like the deal, Trump could say, well, then we're not funding. We're not going to be sending you any more money and arms and equipment. And so, Zelensky, Ukraine would have fallen by now, sadly, if it wasn't for all the help that the U.S. has given, not to mention other countries. Now, I got to tell you, these Ukrainians, boy, do they have some grit. And they have bravery. And for the Ukrainians to still have that resolve to protect their country, God bless them. But Ukraine needed help. And they needed America's help. And Trump is getting a lot of pushback on how much this is costing and how much longer this is going on. Nobody wants a war brewing. Not to mention, our eyes are not being focused on what's happening with China and Taiwan. And we don't need our resources split. And so, Trump had said that Putin and Zelensky were close to a ceasefire deal. But Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine, used to be Kiev, but after the fall of the Soviet Union, it went back to Kyiv, its original name, would have to concede significant territory. Ukrainians did not like that, nor did many European allies. Russian forces, according to Fox News, currently occupy approximately 1/5 of Ukraine's territory, stretching from the Russian border of Crimea, including regions vital to their economy, minerals industry, a home to Europe's largest nuclear power plant. Remember the BS that was going on near the power plant and how worried we were, because Russians are not known to monitor and handle their nuclear sites, as we saw with Chernobyl, very well. Both the White House and the Kremlin have acknowledged Zelensky's request to join the talks. No formal invitation has been extended, however, yet. But if granted, this would be the first face-to-face meeting since the invasion that started February 2022. So 3 years and 5 months, it's got to end. Now, usually with battles like this, the bigger country tries to just wear war of attrition, wear them down. And Putin knows that right now it's not very popular for Americans to help Ukraine in the war. They don't want to keep spending money and shipping vital resources when we may need them. And so Putin knows that Trump, that's going to be his playing card. That's going to be his card to play. He knows that the Americans, if he could make this last as long as possible, he could get what he wants. The problem is Russia has some Trump has some tricks up his sleeve. And if he could do sanctions and if he could hurt them economically, he might be able to get Putin to budge. Putin is not going to want to go back to his team without having significant Ukraine territory. Zelensky's not going to want to go back to his team saying he gave anything up. But Ukraine is in a very tough position because they need America. And if America wants something to happen, if Ukraine still wants our help and support, they're going to have to play ball. And so, I really hope they can move forward on this. I don't like war. I don't want to see any more. I think that the millions in terms of death. There's been reports of people shipped to Siberia, people in camps. I mean, it's 2025, and we are seeing still things that have been plaguing us for centuries during wartime. Tortures, rapes, beatings, and murders, and it needs to end, especially since it's drawing in other countries. So over the weekend, several European leaders did voice support for Zelensky's push to attend this week's summit. Now, I don't mind Zelensky being there, but I also understand that when you do negotiate, there's going to be a lot of emotion. And the talks could break down very, very quickly. And so you almost need the mediator where I'm going to meet with one, then I'm going to meet with the other. If we all can agree, we'll meet in the same room to then discuss this. But if Zelensky goes there and says, no way, I'm out of here, then it could all fall apart. So I understand that Trump probably wants to meet with Putin alone and try to see what he can get and what he can do. And I got to tell you, I mean, both of these leaders, they're not going to give up much. The leaders of Britain, France, Germany, Italy, Poland, Finland, and the European Commission has issued a joint statement that any diplomatic solution brokered between Trump and Putin must uphold the security interests of both Ukraine and Europe. I agree with, and I think the U.S. agrees. I don't think they needed these countries to say that. I mean, Trump's not stupid. You know, he's tried to stop the war and protect Europe by doing this. And I hate how everybody's making it sound like, oh, you guys are gonna, you guys are gonna, make things worse. So, according to the EU, they said the U.S. has the power to force Russia to negotiate seriously. It's according to European Union Foreign Police Chief Kaja Kallas told Reuters any deal between the U.S. and Russia must have Ukraine and the EU included, for it is a matter of Ukraine's and the whole of Europe's security. The problem is getting the EU, the more individuals you have, I agree that they have input and they have a say. But I think the initial talks have to be between Trump and Putin. Trump knows how to make deals. Trump knows how to negotiate. And I think Putin is fearful of Trump. He might think he's got some cards to play, but I don't think anybody wants to mess with Trump. And I do agree with Trump that I don't think this war would have happened on his watch. But Biden was asleep in the White House. So, and somebody else was auto-penning for him. So I hope that Ukraine can come out of this with as much sovereignty, as much of their land, and as much of the protection they need. So Ukraine also needs to know that Putin will not invade them anymore. Again, they were the ones that were invaded. But I want a deal reached. 1-877 Doc Daliah. Don't go away. Dr. Daliah here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799 and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
As an organ donor, your story doesn't have to end. The good in you can live on. In fact, you could save up to 8 lives and restore sight and health for many more. Sign up right now online as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. You'll be happy you did. And just maybe, someone else will be happy too. Go to organdonor.gov. It saves lives. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dolly, 1-877-DOCDALI. So Kelly Clarkson's ex-husband, Brandon Blackstock, died last week, and he was only 48. And we didn't know the official cause of death. I assumed it was cancer because he was so young, but we didn't know what type. And we're being told today that Brandon Blackstock died after a 3-year battle with melanoma. This is according to a statement from the Silver Bow County coroner, Dallas Hollis, and he told People magazine. He said Brandon Blackstock passed away peacefully at his home in Butte, Montana on August 7th under hospice care surrounded by his family. Melanoma, one of the most deadly, aggressive cancers. And in this day and age, with sunscreen and hats and our awareness of it, it's tragic that we are still losing thousands upon thousands of people a year to melanoma. Now, I don't know much about Kelly Clarkson and her relationship with Brandon. From what I understand, they had a rough divorce, and it was not they have, I think, 2 kids together, River Rose, 11 years old, and Remy James, 9 years old. Their divorce was finalized in 2022. And so I don't know how long he had cancer. They said it was a 3-year battle. So that to me means he was diagnosed, or it was found in 2022. And what kind of strikes me as familiar is there was a lawyer who I did a disability exam for one of his patients, and he didn't like my conclusion, the number I came up with. And he was very angry and rude. And I never knew him to be that way. And you could see the numbers. This was the exam. There's the guides, the book we use, so everything is reproducible. There's no subjectivity. Why are you giving me such a hard time? And I didn't understand. And then a few months later, he dies of melanoma. And so when I read this, I'm wondering, especially if he was diagnosed with melanoma 3 years ago, if sometimes we end up, I guess, starting to lose our relationships because of what the cancer does, or the cancer goes to the brain. I had a patient in training who was yelling at the staff, very rude to me, yelling at her family members. And I asked, is her husband here? I want to talk to him about, and she said, oh no, he left. They're getting a divorce. Well, after we worked her up, we found out the reason why she was so agitated and so mean was she had a tumor in the brain that actually started from breast cancer. Now, I'm not saying anytime your spouse gives you a hard time or you guys start to argue, it's because of a brain tumor. But I wonder how many people who have cancer are estranged from their spouses because the relationship took a turn because the cancer affected them in a way where they didn't have all their, shall we say, filters and ways to temper their moods. God forbid, if I have a brain tumor, I'm going to let everybody have it. I mean, I hold back because I can. I'm really nice. There's a lot of things I want to yell and scream about, but I hold back. No need. Now, let's keep it calm, keep it cool. Now, no need to sweat the simple stuff. I'm going to pick my battles. No big thing. Ain't no thing but a chicken wing. Yet, God forbid, you're suffering from something like that and you don't have that control, you're going to let people have it. And so I'm wondering if this might have played a role in their divorce, but they didn't know. And if he did die of it, I'm assuming it was metastatic. Melanoma, hundreds of thousands of cases happen each year. In fact, close to 1 million people in the U.S. currently have melanoma, according to the American Academy of Dermatology Association. Most cases are because the UV light damages the DNA of our skin cells, prompting overgrowth. So melanoma comes from the melanocytes. Melanocytes are the skin color producing cells in our skin. If we could catch a melanoma early, your prognosis is great. But if we can't catch it early, it's horrible. It's deadly. So we use the ABCDEF strategy to evaluate a skin lesion because people are always nervous. Do I have melanoma? Do I have melanoma? And I'm really nervous that more people have it because they don't go to the doctor anymore. When you used to come into my office for blood pressure checks, I would listen to your heart and lungs. And when I would listen to your lungs, I would lift up the shirt, make sure there were no melanomas on the skin. I would ask you about your skin. When you would come in for a pap smear each year, we would check the skin as well as doing the pap smear. Men would come in for a prostate check so we could look and check their bottom and see if there were any abnormal moles. This is how we picked up. The average person might not have a spouse or a partner that really looks in areas where melanoma can hide. Yet we doctors will find it because we examined you or we sent you to a dermatologist for your yearly skin cancer screen. But for those of you that don't have a medical provider and are questioning some of your lesions, don't question. Go get in. You don't have to question. Let us take a look and biopsy. But some guidelines we use is A for asymmetry, where if you drew an imaginary line between the mole, does one side look different than the other? B stands for a border. If the border of the lesion is not smooth like a freckle and well-rounded, well-defined, but a little odd and smudged, that could be a sign of melanoma. C stands for color. Is the color uniform like a freckle, or is there some variegation of it? And, part of it, there's brown and black and light brown and red. So look at the color. D is for diameter. Is it greater than 6 millimeters in size or the size of a pencil eraser? That could be concerning. Most moles should be smaller than that, except for the ones that we're born with. E stands for evolving or elevating. I like evolving better. Is it changing? If the mole is changing, that's a concern. And then F is for fast. Did it pop up fast or did it change quickly? Is something moving fast? And any lesion that prompts suspicion of these needs to, you need to get it looked at, get it biopsied, and get it checked out. Yeah, I was concerned. President Biden had a mole on I think it was his left side of his scalp, upper. I saw that during one of his appearances, and I don't have copyright access to the photos, but you could see he has a dark mole on his scalp. I don't know if it's growing or changing. But I hope his doctor is taking a look at that. It could be benign. A lot of us have moles that are benign. But FDR had a mole above his left eyebrow. And if you look at the early pictures of his presidency and the later pictures of his presidency, you see the blotch get bigger. And one way you could tell it's getting bigger, because remember, he was president for many years, is the photos of him where he's sitting farther away because he was then in a wheelchair, you could still see it across the room, even more so than when it was later. Well, they believe that FDR might have actually died from his melanoma and not his blood pressure. If he did have melanoma and it went to the brain, that could have caused the brain bleed as opposed to his blood pressure. And that's one of the hypotheses in how FDR died. So get your moles checked out. When in doubt, check it out. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Hey guys, it's Dr. Daliah. Fantasy football season is coming, but sadly, too many of you are taking the bench while the country takes part in one of the most exciting and lucrative industries out there. Don't know how to play? Well, huddle up and listen. Paul Kalikas and I have written a fantasy football pocket guide for beginners. This book walks you through the basics and shows you how simple and lucrative joining or creating a fantasy football team can be. Read our fantasy football pocket guide for beginners found on Amazon or follow the links on X and Facebook. That's Fantasy Football Pocket Guides for Beginners. Don't be left out.
To protect his family from disaster, Steve used his camera phone. By taking pictures of his important documents, Steve can always have them stored online. Learn more simple disaster prep tips at ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
Millions estimate their benefits online, so they can do what they want offline. Social Security, securing today and tomorrow. See what you can do online at socialsecurity.gov.